All right, let's do it, Lee. Let's start it off, buddy.
All right. So, hey, everybody, welcome to, what are we calling this? The mechanics of flipping? Welcome to the mechanics of flipping. We have a couple of special guests today. Investing in real estate can be a very, very tricky business, especially in Los Angeles where the prices are so darn high. And what we'll learn today from Mr. Henry Vega and our own Brock Aloysius Worthen is the mechanics about how to identify, how to improve, and how to sell a property and make a profit all at the same time. So welcome, everybody. I'm sure glad you tuned in. And let's start off with a real quick, I'm going to introduce Henry Vega. 20 years of flipping experience in the real estate default industry. Henry's made a name for himself as a licensed real estate broker, currently with KW Las Feliz as well. And his company is City REO Brokers. Henry has sold numerous REO assets on a diverse array of default properties, including HUD listings, short sales, REO, auction, probate, many other types of sales. Henry and his team of investors have bought, developed, and flipped numerous SFRs. I lost my place. For profit. He has a vast network of reliable and knowledgeable contractors on his team, including ADUs, add-ons, and quick projects. He uses the MLS, he uses wholesalers and other methods to acquire assets. Welcome, Henry Vega. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much.
All right. And our own, for those of you who don't know Brock, I don't know that any of us don't know Brock. Brock's been at this almost 20 years now as a real estate professional. I think Brock was Rookie of the Year. Is that true, Brock?
Way back, long time ago, yes.
Brock was Rookie of the Year, and that is certainly foretelling of the rest of his real estate career. Selling an awful lot of houses, becoming a top real estate agent early on in his career. He chose to take a leadership track, and he's been a team leader and managing partner for many, many years now. And I think the best part of Brock is his wife, Tracy, and his kids, Cade and Tatum, personally. But welcome, please welcome Brock Worthen to the dais.
Thanks, Lee. Excited. This will be fun. We'll have a lot of opportunities, I think, between Henry and I, and just, the differences that we both have, and then a lot of the common threads that we have with respect to, the mechanics, if you will, of flipping. Henry, I actually have a tremendous amount of respect for and what he does, and I'm going to learn as much today from him that most of you as well. So if you see me with my head down, I'm probably taking some notes. So without further ado, let's start off, Lee.
All right. So, okay, step one, we're in Los Angeles, LA County, essentially, and we're in a very, very competitive marketplace. Now, Henry and Brock may approach this flipping or investment business differently, but I think they both have very similar steps and methods and models that they follow. So that first step is to assemble your team. So Brock, why don't we talk briefly about the money, the contractors, designers, architects, project managers, stuff like that. How do you assemble your team?
So, for me, I have a partner. My partner is an architect, and what's great about us is, he's a high SC and I'm a high DI, and it works well. He's somebody that, for me, when we decided to partner up, I had done a few projects prior to partnering with him and had a team of subs, and kind of after, many discussions around the benefits of both of our sort of teams, I really kind of leaned more into utilizing the subs that he had, just because I felt that based on our shared stories, I was having some troubles with just timelines prior to, and he had kept his subs pretty busy, and it just seemed for me that utilizing his group of subs was going to be more beneficial, because he already kind of had a stabilized track record with him for probably 8 to 10 years. And so we just kind of combined our resources. I pulled a few of mine and the majority of his. But he comes from the standpoint, like he's got a lot of relationships with cities and so he'll do the pulling of permits for us. I come in from more of like design and aesthetics and really kind of understanding what I feel today's buyers are wanting. I think from the standpoint of having that part of it, really holding them accountable. And the only way we can hold them accountable is to keep them busy, because as soon as the work slows down, your really good subs and your contractors find other work. So I think it's important to make sure that once you find a really good team, surround them with opportunities.
Absolutely right. So Henry, tell us about your step one. How do you assemble your team?
Well, that's a very good point. When I started, it was trial and error. You try out certain contractors, they don't work out. So it starts off being an experiment, and you keep the good ones and you let go of the bad ones. And also, as Brock was mentioning, he mentioned two good points. Well, several good points, but two that stood out. Keep your subs busy. That's how I leverage them. So my leverage to them is like, hey, you're not going to get rich off me, but I'm going to give you consistent work. So I'm not the person that's going to give you one kitchen remodel every 10 years, like a normal client that you can charge higher premiums. I'm going to give you year round, and I keep them busy. I do what I say. So if I'm doing 2-3 projects at a time, I rotate them. When I get another property on the market, I go aggressive because I know it's going to sell and I know the money is going to come back. It's going to be replenished, right? So we're going to go out and buy more properties. Also, the other point is I refer them business when it is slow. So if I don't have anything coming in, you can't force buying a property. So you have to really weed out. I go through maybe 50 to 100 before I pull the trigger on one, and maybe make offers on 2, and one gets accepted, the others don't. If they don't pan out, you just continue. You don't chase the market. And then the other point I want to make, he mentioned also about relationships. So that works well with his partner, because his partner deals with the permit process, which is very tough. So I do all that myself personally. I go to the city. I'm looking actually for somebody that can be a runner, that can do the permit process and whatnot. I do have a architect on my team. I do have also a engineer. I have our CPA, and I have the contractors. And one thing I want to mention also about the team is I also am getting better now so I have, for example, a flooring guy that he just does laminate flooring or wood floors. That's it. He doesn't want to do any other tile. He doesn't want to touch 2-3 things. He just does that, and he does it very well. So those are the people you want on your team, and you kind of sub out the work where, okay, it's time for the mud and taping's done. We got the drywall up. Now the flooring comes. He's the next guy on deck. So it's kind of like it's systematic, and I think we can go into that later. But yeah, that in a nutshell, that's how I pick my team.
Great. So
yes, real quick. One of the things that we do is because Ross is an architect and he also does the project managing. So we build in a fee, and this is just important for people to know. Like we build in a fee for him for project managing it. So there's an extra bump in the profit on his end for managing the project. Now, then I have a fee that's less on sort of the project management. There's things that I do and that I'm required to do, but from a sort of a day-to-day, making sure the contractors are showing up and staying, in a very sort of tight timeline, he gets an increased fee for that. So when you guys are starting to look at, your budgets, that's a really important factor, is that you're going to have to need a project manager, and there's a cost to that.
Absolutely. And you want to incentivize them.
Well, you make them part of the, you can make them part of the deal as well.
Sure.
You want to keep costs down too. So mine just happens to be my partner. So.
Right.
That's cool. All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about money. Now, both of you approach this differently. You have, I assume you have different margin requirements, but where does the money come from to start these flips?
You want to start, Brock?
Henry, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So we use hard money primarily. We leverage it.
Okay.
And we've gotten to the point where if we tap out on our money, then instead of giving the deal away, I partner with people on the deal. For example, I just closed a deal last month and I didn't put a dime of it. I found the deal. I went on, I signed up as a hard money lender because they didn't have the experience. So right now my hard money lenders are giving me 10% down, which is incredible. I got about an 8.5 interest rate with 1.5 points. Now, if you come to me and say, hey, I want that rate and deal, you're not going to get it unless you have like 5 deals under your belt in the past 12 months, and they will check. So start your corporation, get your deals done. If you haven't done deals, partner with Brock or I, or find whoever you want to partner with if you're serious about getting into flipping, because that's how you're going to better leverage your money. You don't need $1 million to buy a flip. You can literally buy a flip with about $120,000 is where I kind of say the entry point at a $500,000 deal, which, yeah, good luck trying to find a fight. There are deals out there in the 500-600 range. And that's my sweet spot. And I know Brock will talk about his a little later. He's kind of a little bit more of the high end, but I'm okay with working in volume. And I also have my net amount that we want to earn. But to answer your question, Lee, yeah, 10% down, we leverage. It could be 15% down. It just depends on the ARV. The hard money lender is going to care not much about your credit. They're not going to care about your partners, as long as your credit's not shot or anything, of course. They're going to want to see some collateral, but the collateral itself is going to be mainly on the property, the subject property that we are flipping or building an AD or whatever you're doing to it. They're going to want to know what you're doing, by the way.
It's not called hard money for a reason. That's
Yeah.
called hard money for a reason, right?
Exactly.
All right, Brock, where does your money come from?
So we both our goal is that we both take down a property as close to, simultaneous as possible. So I'll finance one, he'll finance the other, and then, the upgrades and the remodel costs, we self-finance those through our own personal funds. Ross will sometimes pull out a HELOC and use his HELOC to finance improvements on his half of the balance sheet. And then, and then I just use, personal funds to do my half. And then what we're in the early stages of and have some commitments on right now is raising a $2 million fund. So that will give us more opportunities, because the goal is to scale. And, when you are self-financing things, you have a threshold, right? We can only get so much leverage. So I'm in discussions now with a longtime client that is looking to partner. And so we're raising $2 million, and that would allow us to be able to take down more than 2 projects at a time. And the other thing I wanted to share with respect to financing, and if you're looking at raising capital, you have to understand what that rate of return is that people are looking for. Typically in my experience, somewhere between that 15 and 18% cash on cash that investors are going to want. We've performed exceptionally higher than that, which we wouldn't necessarily offer, but and we can talk a little bit more about that later as far as some of the returns. But I think if you can get to a point where the margins would warrant 15 to 18 for your investors, that would make them very happy and more than willing to continue to give you money. You might be able to find some that are in that 12%, but either way, there's the margins are getting tougher now to make money. And Henry and I were talking before the call, and a lot of you have heard this before. The money's made on the acquisition, not on the disposition, but it's extremely difficult now to make money on the acquisition, because in order to play the game, you got to pay a premium. So you're really truly buying and flipping based on speculation, which is it's a tough game, because at the end of the day, you're going to be left holding a property at a point in time. We don't know when that will happen. And, there's nothing wrong with that, right? You can stick a tenant in there and hold the asset. And then, hopefully maybe you can leverage some of the equity later down the road when you refinance it. But at some point you're left holding that property. So you just want to make sure that as you are flipping on speculation, that you're doing, really good work that's going to warrant high returns.
And
So,
another point, if I may, I just want to add that also on hard money loans, for example, if we factor in the project's going to require $80,000 to rehab the home, for example, that they will give you 100% of that as well in a draw.
They're financing the improvements.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Even an ADU as well.
Right. And every day you own that property, it's costing you.
That's correct.
Right.
The clock's ticking, buddy.
That's right. All right. Number 3. So how do you guys identify the properties? What goes into what's your thought process when you property comes on the MLS, somebody calls and says, hey, there's this great house that's off market at the moment. Tell us how do you formulate your plan?
I mean, I think ours is much more simpler than Henry's. I mean, we're all about proximity. My partner and I both live in La Crescenta. And for us, we both also have other jobs. And he's an architect full time. And I obviously have a couple of hats that I'm wearing. So, being able to drive to and from the property, the site, and get there within, minutes is important, because obviously we don't want to be trekking, especially in LA, all over the city to get to and from, especially if you're managing crews, you want it to be easy. So we stick within, I'd say, probably a 7-mile radius, but our last several projects have been really probably within 2.5, 3 miles from our home. So we really look to stay in that La Crescenta, Glendale area. And it just makes life a lot easier to manage properties for us. And then we look at, one of the first things I look at is price per foot, what a property is listed at, because we kind of know where we'll end up when we sell our properties, because we kind of have an expectation based on the work that we do, the quality of the work that we do. So we have an end goal of the price per foot that we're looking at. So, when I'm looking at new inventory, one of the first things I'm looking at, obviously, aside from the added value component, but where it's being listed at a price per square foot, and then where we think we can acquire it.
Wow.
And then within that, you want to be able to determine, how quickly you can get in and get out. Henry mentioned earlier the importance of hold time. Your debt service will kill your margins as much as major improvements like a roof or plumbing. So you just really want to look to get in and get out as quickly as possible, so that you're not holding the asset longer than you need to, which obviously compromises your ROI.
Have either of you guys added square footage ever or lately?
Yes.
And your timeline is just a lot longer to do that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So as Brock mentioned earlier, these are great question. We add, that's how we value add on some of them. So we buy the property as if we're not going to do the ADU, but we know we're going to do the ADU. So you still try to get the first property at a discount regardless. And usually the formula is between 70-75% ARV of what the future value will bring. And on top of that, you add the ADU. We know it's going to add time to it. We're going to factor in another 6 months of payments on the hard money loan. But the ARV would be a lot higher for sure.
And there's something for you guys to just notate that, when you're adding more than 400 square feet, you're going to pay a school tax, a 10% school tax, which also is going to, it's going to have an impact on your profit margin. So if you are doing something where you can get away with adding less than 400 square feet, you avoid that 10% tax for local schools.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Henry,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and most ADUs also just want to notate, because people assume, I see this a lot, where they'll see a garage and they'll say, oh, it has ADU potential. Well, everything's ADU potential. You can build as little as 400 square feet all the way to 1,200 square feet per city. It varies by city, but that's usually the range.
Right.
And you can also build a granny flat in addition to the ADU. So a lot of people are not aware of that either. It's way better for me to just knock down the garage and not even mess with it, because most garages just have like a slab of like a 2-foot slab of concrete, maybe no rebar, foundation screwed. Just better to tear it down. And my framers prefer to start from the ground up. It's a quicker process.
So Henry, tell us how you identify your properties.
So the criteria is very simple. As Brock was mentioning, proximity is very important. I know the area. I've been selling real estate because of the REO background that I had. I just happened to get a lot of REOs in 2006 through 10 in the South Central LA area, South LA, Southeast LA. So I know that area. I look at days on market. How fast are they selling? That's an indicator of how fast the market can either. So what I'll do is I'll do an absorption rate. It's the absorption rate. I don't know if you guys heard of it. It's how much inventory needs to go out before it becomes like inundated with properties. So the absorption rate is important. Days on market, we factor that in. I'm looking at the criteria where it's 4,500 square foot lot or more, because that can give me room to add my ADU or add square footage. And we are going to get caught holding the bag at some point, as Brock mentioned. I thought this was going to happen 6 months ago, but we've been seeing a steady increase. But eventually you want to have an exit strategy as well. So you better start thinking about Airbnb a property, have that in place just in case, rent it out for the long term if need be. Even if you're short or just pay your mortgage, you'll survive. Get ready to refinance it. Keep your credit good so that you're ready to refinance it back as a rental property if you need to.
I wanted to jump in and you actually triggered an example I wanted to share. Like, we took down a property in August that we had planned to add 800 square feet to, and then, kind of realizing how backed up things were with the city and dealing with Glendale. If anybody's done that, you'll know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cedar trees or the oak trees.
Exactly. We decided to put a tenant in the property, and obviously that offsets the debt service by probably 75%. And then, what we were going to do is let it ride out for a year and increase obviously in value. And then instead of doing the 800 to 900 square foot addition, we would just do bathrooms and kitchen and, just really kind of, not having to go and pull permits. And what we ended up doing was we found somebody that wanted to buy it off market. We didn't have to spend $1. We actually spent, we spent $750 on a survey, but that was all we did. And it turned into be a really nice return. And this is what I want to make a point to. You don't always have to make improvements. I mean, we're in a very hot market. Dan, you and your team in Hawaii are in a very hot market as well. I mean, just buying and holding it for 6 months, you're going to have a substantial return. Now, did we leave money on the table? Absolutely. But we actually did a solid for a good person that allowed them to get into the school district of La Crescenta. And that also feels good. Sometimes you give up some profit and know that you're doing somebody and their family a really good solid, and it builds favor and obviously things. I think good things will come from that. So you don't always have to do improvements. If you have a market that warrants a very steady appreciation, you can certainly turn it around really quickly for a profit. And Henry, you and I were talking about this before. Like, the whole goal here, you guys, is not hitting home runs. There isn't home runs really to be hit unless you find that unicorn. You want to keep the money moving. You want to make a profit. The goal is profitability. And as long as that money is circulating and moving, there's money being made on that. So if it's sitting around and you're sitting on cash, we all know what's happening to that cash. It's devaluing. So exactly. The goal is, we don't always want to, try to just swing for the fences. We really want to make sure that we're making right decisions along the way and we're making a profit.
Just one more thing I want to add on, Lee, I forgot to mention. So the areas, so that area, since I work that area, I know the area as well. So I look at Lamert Park, 90062. It's close to USC, college students, high rents, density. I look at 90043, 0037. And you got to memorize them. You got to fall in love with those numbers and know that's your area. You know, with sight unseen, that you know how much that property is going to sell for, and you better be accurate. And I'm also looking at craftsman properties in particular, because just people love craftsmen there.
Yep. Arts and crafts, that's right. There, I'm selling a place in Bungalow Heaven. It's not a arts and crafts home or craftsman. It's still getting a tremendous price. So
Yeah,
people love Bungalow Heaven, National Historic District and all that. And when you own an arts and crafts home or craftsman home, you are a steward of it. You really are.
sure.
So let's move on to formulating your budget and performing your analysis. We've already sort of talked about the analysis. Now, do you guys use an Excel spreadsheet or a worksheet when you're looking at the expenses of buying a property? Do you use an Excel worksheet or a worksheet of some sort?
Yeah, we have an ongoing Excel. We just add tabs for each property. The great thing is we try to stick in a pretty similar, specs when we're looking at properties. They're typically, 3.2s between 1,500 and 2,000 feet. And then we kind of then know that what it's going to cost us for plumbing, what it's going to cost us for electrical, what the roof's going to cost us. So we can start replicating and creating a system. And, we're looking at the bread and butter, where, a lot of them, the sort of larger pool of buyers fall into, and then where the potential value add is on a 3.2 at 1,500 feet. If we can add some footage or an extra bath, we do that. But yeah, we have an ongoing spreadsheet. And the cool thing with this spreadsheet is we can then, analyze, okay, look, if we looked at the property, we realized that we don't have to move a wall, or do anything to the bathroom, we're going to save some money on plumbing. So then we can look to say, okay, maybe we can save a couple grand here, we can save a couple grand here with it, not replacing the HVAC. So that allows us to kind of manipulate the profit margin a little bit when we can kind of use the same budget from the previous project, as long as it's, there's common threads with the two subject properties.
Oh, Henry?
Yes, I'm here. So another thing, I just want to add one thing. So basically, Brock made a good point. So what we do the same thing. We have a spreadsheet where we plug in the numbers. You already know plumbing, AC costs, they're pretty much fixed costs. One thing that we do, and I stopped trying to do shortcuts. I gut the whole property. I'd rather remove the walls, figure out what's behind it, fix the framing, call for inspections, and if your framer and your workers are doing a good job, when the inspector shows up, they're going to be wowed. They're not going to give you a hard time. You know when they give you a hard time? When you're, sorry that I have to say that, when your work sucks.
Yep.
Yeah.
When they're cutting corners, they're going to come in and they're going to just say, well, nope, you don't know what you're doing. But when you know what you
yeah. No, I'm going to make a point. And that's such a great point, because, you can see bad work really easily. And
oh yeah,
unfortunately,
we've all seen it. And when you show your clients, it's so embarrassing. You're like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm even showing you this house.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that stuff is still selling. I mean, there was a property that sold at $1,049 a foot in La Crescenta. I don't want to say too much about it, but I went and saw it. It was a flip, and I couldn't believe it. The work that was done, there was like laminate wood around the mantelpiece. And what we do is we use reclaimed wood that's just like, it's substantial, it looks good, and it's good quality work. People are going to pay a premium when you put money into the property and you do it right. And you're not trying to cut corners and get out of there too quickly. If you're gonna go in there and do good work, people will recognize it and they'll pay it. And guess what will come from that? Additional business.
And that's your stamp, that's your signature. Have some integrity when you're doing this. Have some integrity. Also, you start building a name for yourself, believe it or not. Like, you have a lot of agents, buyers agents call me all the time. Hey, where's your next project going to come up to? Where's it going? Give them a preview. If they're good agents, why not? Tell them, yeah, it's coming up in a month or two. Come check it out. They already know you're going to deliver quality. You're not going to have any problems.
Absolutely right. And I follow fellow agents that are also developers, flippers, and they've developed fan clubs because they do such beautiful work. They
Yeah.
have people that go to their open houses that they have no intention of buying. They just want to see what that guy just did to the next house.
Yeah.
You know?
And yeah, it's true. And I'll tell you guys, I'm very transparent. When I got in this business, you know, Brock, nobody wanted to share with me the secrets of how to do it. That's why I always take an opportunity to speak and give my knowledge. I don't hold back because I wasn't given that opportunity when I started, 20 plus years ago. They would just laugh. They would laugh out of their Ferrari and say, oh, just sell me the damn property. You know, that's why I'll invite any of you, if you guys want to see my projects while they're being done or whatever, come on by anytime. Just reach out to me.
Awesome. Before we move on, a little housekeeping, you guys. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. We're monitoring the chat box. And can you guys field a question right now? Is that all right?
Sure.
So the question is, Faisal, my man, do you only look on the MLS or how do you check for off-market properties and opportunities?
You want to answer that, Brock?
Well, there's a couple things. It's really hard right now to find things off market just because everybody knows that you're leaving money on the table when you're entertaining off market. I mean, I'm an example of that, but we did it because it was the right thing to do for the family that we helped out. But that being said, from our most recent project, I had a seller come to us who initially the conversation started out about us, like remodeling her home, and that's not really what we want to get into because there's not a lot of money in that for us. But what it did lead to was an opportunity where, we're talking now where we would potentially buy her house and help her find her up leg in, her desired community of La Cañada, which that, when you do really good work and people come to you and want to have you do maybe something to their house, or, you never know where the conversation can go. So Faisal, and, those types of deals come because you do good work that you could potentially create an off-market situation. But I'll tell you, it's just really hard finding off-market properties. We're paying premium right now, but our last 3 deals, our cash on cash is 100%, 43%, and 67%. So even though we're paying a premium, we're doing really good work and we're getting the numbers.
Wow. Amazing.
Awesome. So I'll add to that. I do find properties on MLS, believe it or not. There's some hidden gems. You just got to look. If you think that is too good to be true, then it is. But I don't always think that. Weed it out and go out there and drive. Get an economical car. I got a little Honda. I get like 31 miles a gallon. I love it because I drive everywhere. I drive 3-4 hours a day, and I don't mind just driving out. And even with gas being expensive, but you have to go visit 3-5 properties a week, right, Brock? I mean, you have to weed them out and fill them for yourself. Okay, this is not going to work. I don't like for example, I won't buy a house if it has a bad layout. If I have to move around walls, it's just too much. It may make sense, but you start eliminating the deals. But yeah, that's, and to answer your question, very good point. Wholesalers, there's great wholesalers out there, and then there's some bad ones. So if you can make relationships with good wholesalers, they're worth gold and guess what? They know you're buying the deals and you keep your word where you don't back out of the deals. They're going to go to you first. I've had wholesalers say, hey, we're going to put this out in 2 days. We want to give you the opportunity. If you could put 35 grand, whatever, in escrow, it's yours. Before they go out and open it up to other investors, quote unquote.
And Faisal, to answer your question, as far as leaving money on the table, I mean, that's kind of, like everybody's different, I think Henry's brought up some great points. If you have the time, you can canvas certain areas and look for, properties that have, they have diminished, value, and that, work that needs to be done. Great. Try to, connect with that homeowner. But, for me, I don't necessarily have that time, and it just really works where right now, we have relationships in the community that we're working, and, we understand that paying a premium is part of it for us right now. We do the high quality work, and so far it's been working for us. I know at some point there will be a shift. We understand, making less is going to be a part of it. I think everybody, real estate industry, like as a whole, we have to understand that we are going to be working for less. It's another conversation, but whether it's profit margins or commissions, they are being compressed.
Absolutely.
Which also is another point. Just looking year over year, the labor has gone up 35% for us. Materials are hovering between 37 and 38%. Labor, so the very same subs that we're using are charging 35% more than they were a year ago, and they're not doing anything differently. And you can't, it's just rules of engagement. Like you have to pay it, because what are you going to do if you have really good laborers? And subs, you want to use them, and everything else is costing more. We know gas, goods, everything. So again, it's all part of the equation.
Yep.
All right. So we've assembled our team. We've got our money in place. We've identified a property that's going to give us a return on our investment that's appropriate, and it's time to write an offer. So how do you guys write in this marketplace where sellers are getting 20, 30, 90 offers on their properties, right? You still have to make $1 by buying and selling it yourselves. How are you writing the best offer you can with these sellers?
Yeah, well, I'll take that. I would try to go to the listing agent and ask them to write it up for you. That's the obvious one. A lot of people use that approach. It may work sometimes, but sometimes they don't care. You just write a cash offer with no appraisal contingency, because you already know the value is going to be there anyway. Just go and put very low inspection contingencies, maybe 3 days, or maybe even remove them. You're buying the property as is. You already know you're going to gut the property. You don't really care if the electrical works or not, or the plumbing, right? I mean, you go in expecting that. If you get a good surprise where, oh, it works. Oh, this one has they put plumbing, copper plumbing, cool. It's a score, but you're looking at just the bones of the property. So I write really aggressive offers, and it's hard to get accepted even in that case. There's always someone willing to pay more, and let them pay more. They want to win the bid, and with the margins, let them. Another approach that we're going to probate now, and I'm going to the probate, the courthouse, and I'm bidding now. I'm getting better at buying properties at the court.
Doing overbids?
Yes, overbids.
Overbids, gotcha.
Correct.
There was a time when you could go to I don't know if you've been in long enough, Henry, where you
The courthouse steps.
Did you go to Norwalk?
Uh-huh.
Did you go to Norwalk and wave your cashier's checks at people and stuff?
I think that still goes on. But I mean, it's like the mafia there. Good luck trying to let you in. It's these guys are sharks, man. They're good at it.
So Brock, how do you write an offer that separates you from the pack?
Well, how I write an offer for us versus a client is totally different. Like what we do, I wouldn't recommend having a client do, but we go in non-contingent. There's a property that I'm writing an offer on that's due Sunday, and it's priced at 1149. We'll come in at 1175 non-contingent, and we have a threshold that we'll go up to based on our numbers. We can go up. I'll just tell you guys, we can go up to 1.2 and still feel comfortable in what we'll do, with upgrades, and then where we'll end it as far as the exit. So, because we'll go to the property and we do our sort of own visual inspection. Ross, my partner, has his strengths, I have my strengths, and then we collaborate on that. It also helps too. His wife's also an architect, so sometimes she'll join in the, in the process of previewing the home to make sure that there's not a huge foundation issue, or anything that would really sort of like open up a can of worms once we got under contract. So yeah, so we're really aggressive. We don't put any contingencies in there. We understand that, it's a risk, but it's a risk that we're willing to take based on, analyzing the property through the, the open houses or the, private showings that we'll do.
Got it. And it certainly helps having a couple of professionals with you,
Yeah.
architects that know that know the nuts and bolts. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's awesome. Great. All right. So we've assembled our team. We've put our money together. We identified a property. We did our market analysis and diligence. Now we've acquired this property. So congratulations to you guys. So now we talk about timeline. And I know with my own personal experience with contractors, they say 2 weeks. And it's like 2 months. It's like, I'll get to you when I have time. So let's talk about timeline, you guys. So Henry, let's start with you and tell us how your plan begins from the time you close escrow.
So the time we close escrow, and just before we close escrow, also when we do our due diligence up front, I'm taking the contractor there with me when I see the property. Maybe not initially, but the day or two after I write the offer, just to make sure that we're buying is solid. And so the timelines, the way I write the contracts with the contractors is saying, hey, you're gonna get paid X amount just for labor. I'm buying the materials. So you go to Home Depot, buy what you need to do, or wherever you're buying your products from, get them delivered in one shot. Maybe in a couple, you do that 2 or 3 times, so you're not, you keep the supplies at the home. But the way we write it up so that they're incentivized to finish faster is you write the contract. For example, you say, okay, when are you going to get it done? 8 weeks? Okay, perfect. So you break it down into 8 weeks, and then you're paying them weekly based on their performance. So if that's not done, I'm like, hey, I'm holding your pay. I don't see we're at that percentage yet. So what happens is if you start giving them too much money, then you're overpaying them because they start coming up with surprises. Oh, that wasn't included in the bid. I know you heard this term a lot, Brock. What do they call it? Change order. I hate the change order. If you start hearing change order, you're working with the wrong people, because they should tell you, hey, that's part of it. Oh, I didn't include the deadbolts. That's not part of it. No, when I say doors and finishes, I mean everything. So write down detailed contracts and make sure you have a timeline in place in the contract.
Yeah, I mean, our guys are paid weekly, and something you guys always have to remember, you got to take care of your people. You got to pay them. You don't delay payments, and you take care of them, they'll take care of you. I do want to say it's important once you go non-contingent, assuming you put a contingency in there. We start ordering, windows, tile, light fixtures, because we all know what's happened in the world over the last couple of years with supply chains being backed up. So we do that to get ahead of it. Sometimes it doesn't matter. I mean, our last project, we were delayed 5 weeks for windows. So there was some dead time there, but we moved our contractors around and kept them working. But that's also something I think you guys should notate, while you're in escrow, get ahead of it. Because again, timing is everything. If you're not, keeping a tight timeline, guess what happens? Your profit goes down because you're holding the property longer than you need.
Yeah.
So
and the only advantage of having a property more than 1 year, when we talked about timelines, is you don't pay capital gains. So that could be something beneficial.
Well, you pay short-term capital gains.
Short-term capital gains, right?
But it's not personal income tax, it's capital gains, right? Within 1 year.
Yeah, correct. And after 1 year, it goes down some. So that's one positive way to look at it.
Got it. Yeah, that's a huge takeaway. Don't wait until the close of escrow. If you're closing, get on, whoever that purchasing person is, they need to get on the horn.
Be prepared.
Gosh. I mean, my windows took 12 weeks. My doors are still not here. After 17 weeks. Oy, I tell you. All right. Okay, we've sort of covered that number 7 after closing. Ensure your subs are ready. Yes. Now, are you both the project managers on your builds, or is that given to someone else, that responsibility?
I think Brock mentioned that I think he subs it out. I'm the property manager on mine. I do everything on mine.
It's my partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
great.
But I mean, there's shared responsibilities. I mean, it's not 100% one or the other. You know, there's times where I'm having to deal with the subs and, cutting checks and, or going to pick up tile or whatever it is, or just, but from the standpoint of understanding that you have to have one, that's really important, because you do need to have somebody that's keeping them, keeping them accountable, right?
Mhm.
If you don't have eyes on it, we always say this, you got to inspect what you expect. So if
Right.
you're not keeping eyes on it, guess what's going to happen? Delays. And that delays is just, it's going to cost you money.
Absolutely right. So both of you guys are riding herd. You're visiting the job sites regularly,
Correct.
and you're making sure that the punch list is being completed,
Correct.
right? Great.
Yeah,
So
because ultimately you're responsible for it, and no one's gonna care like you are.
Well, it's your
No one's
money,
gonna
man.
care about your money like you are.
it's your money every day. The clock is ticking on that money.
That's right.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. I mean, every day you're like, cha-ching, cha-ching, it's another $150, another $200, another $200.
The hustle is real. And Brock, let me ask you a question. Are you there for the inspector, where the inspectors show up the first day?
Yeah.
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 Same with me. I like to be there and build rapport with them as well.
Oh, you get tight with the inspectors. It's a good thing. We've
Yeah.
had a few things where we needed some love, and they helped us out on it. So yeah.
That could make or break your deal, by the way.
Yeah.
what?
And I'm not going to say that I haven't ever given any inspector like a nice In-N-Out gift card, or, hey, go get some nice,
Who doesn't love Starbucks?
it's just
Who
a
doesn't love
thank
Starbucks?
It's just a thank you. Yeah. Well, In-N-Out, I mean, most inspectors love them some In-N-Out.
In-N-Out, Starbucks.
Well, but honestly, after time, like your work is going to speak for itself. Like if you're doing work in the same community and you see these inspectors come out and they're like, oh, Henry's project. Let me write that up. Maybe I'll slow down as I pass the property before I
Yeah.
sign off on it.
I've had inspectors that are so cool. Hey, send me a photo, send me an email. They already know I'm going to get it done.
Yeah,
And I
love
send
it.
them immediately as soon as from my phone, done. They're like, all right, you're golden.
Your work speaks for itself. All right.
You want to take some questions, Lee? It looks like there might be some questions piling up.
Our questions are backing up. All right. Okay, so Francis, let's start there. Francis, do you do a physical inspection, or your contractors do that for you? Like a physical inspection?
Yeah, so yeah, we on the acquisition, we don't. I bring my partner, and usually that's enough, because he's done enough homes. And we know kind of going into it, because we've done sort of our own visual inspections prior to, like what we're facing. Now, look, when you open up a wall, we did a 1924 Spanish in Glendale. When, we opened up some walls, all of a sudden, you got cloth wiring, and, it's a whole nother, bag of worms. But, you kind of have to have contingencies in there. We talk about overages, and that's when that kind of comes into play. But that's part of what, in order to get the property, you kind of have to remove that physical inspection. So it just kind of comes with, the territory of this game. So,
Right.
yeah,
Faisal's asking, can you please share your deal evaluation tool or Excel spreadsheet?
I'm okay with, we can maybe take some email, if you guys would just shoot your email addresses in the chat, and I'll have Lee grab those, and we can share.
Yeah. And, at the end of the day, I have like when you get hard money deals, they'll give you like a contractor breakdown. And that's usually my go-to anyway. Like I'll just plug in the numbers, and it's not really a fancy formula or anything. It's just it's in an Excel, but it's just going to tell you what your costs are going to be. And, you figure out on your iPhone, you can do your math. I'm going to pay 5% premium on the resale, right, of the property, which if you're going to list, you can save some money, or someone close to you, and offer 2% or 2.5%, whatever, you decide to offer if the market bears for it. So you got to factor that in. A lot of people don't factor that in. Factor in how many payments you're going to have. But yeah, we'll be happy to share the formula if you guys want.
I love it because the spreadsheet is generally the same or 99% the same, right? You
Yeah,
have the same issues, right? The
most part.
materials, labor, uh,
Demo.
Oh,
demolition, site cleaning, site maintenance. If you have to put a
Every
fence up.
bin is $800 now for a 7-ton 40 yarder. It's
Yeah.
through the roof.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And how
There's
many of
always-
those bad boys do you need? If you're breaking concrete, you might need 6 or 7 of those bad boys.
But without that spreadsheet, I know for myself, I would have lots of oops, or like, oh shit, I forgot to, I forgot to factor in, my construction cleanup.
Well, there's things that we've learned after each project that we need to now include on the spreadsheet as a line item for the next project. Just, just something that was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
Yep.
And, I think this previous one, we had a koi pond and we had to have maintenance twice a month, on the koi pond. And that adds up, there's little things that just kind of come up. Now, that's not going to be on every project, but there are things that do come up that you didn't maybe think about that you then add to the spreadsheet moving forward. So,
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Okay, so we've gone through the acquisition, the improvement of the property. Now it's time to prep the home for sale. So tell us, if you would, briefly how that works in your organizations.
you want to go, Henry, you want me to start?
Sure. How do we prep the home once it's completed?
Yes.
Yeah, so we stage all of our homes, for example, hire professional photographers. He's part of our team. Our stagers are with our team. They give us discounts because we give them multiple work. Photographers are on board. They love us. They drone if it calls for it, if it has a big yard, appealing yard, or just a 3D scan, the Matterport, that's already standard in our prepping. We clean the homes. We hire a cleaner right after the workers are done. Have people walking with booties and making sure your floors stay clean. I always keep a Swiffer. You'll find me the janitor before the open house. I'm the janitor. Like literally, I'll keep a Swiffer and I'll go buy some pads and I'll just do that right before the open house. Some plugins to smell nice, light some candles, and voila.
Love
One thing that you'll have to do, and everything Henry said is what we do, but one thing that you'll have to notate is that after the stagers come in, there's oftentimes touch-ups that you need to do because they scrape a wall or they bump a corner. So you got to make sure that you factor that in as well. And then, making sure, look, it's most of you, everybody on this Zoom is in the business. So it's very similar to how you prep your listings, right? You don't want to cut corners. We stage everything. I'm a firm believer that you have to stage. We do our drones. We make sure we canvas the surrounding area with marketing materials. We just expose it as much as we can, and then ready for showtime once it goes live. So it seems to work. I think you guys also have to make sure that you're doing the little things. I think an idea that I haven't used, but I thought of it from our most recent is just, putting throughout the property, little identifications for yourself, meaning like whether it's your brand, maybe throwing up a QR code. Hey, somebody's in the bathroom, they love your bathroom, drop a QR code. And that then sets it, comes back to your email, that sets an appointment, allows them to, contact you because, they like your work or whatever it is. Like there's little things you can start to utilize technology wise that will give you guys just, help you stand out and allow people to feel like they can connect with you without having to, feel like they have to ask you or you have to ask for their number. They can do it discreetly.
Good point. We haven't
Well,
implemented that yet, but we will start to do that.
A lot of leverage there. Great stuff, you guys. Who needs McDonald's when you got this many nuggets?
Bada boom, bada bing. Love it.
Did I sell it? I really practiced that.
And one thing, if I may add, Lee, because we're talking about profits, margins and whatnot, but listen, guys, you're getting inventory. Maximize your inventory. Take advantage of these opportunities. Do open houses. Get buyers. So, if you start doing certain listings in a neighborhood, you start getting noticed. As Brock said, brand yourself within your own listing, take advantage of it. So it's all leverage. You're creating energy. If you're not flipping, you're not doing anything. Who cares if you make, I'd say after you're making 10%, 20%, 30%, but you're creating energy and synergy. And if you're taking advantage and you're working hard on leveraging these opportunities, they will turn into more business. Absolutely.
To answer a couple questions,
Love it.
I think Faisal asked, no, I would not stage virtually. I think I'm not a fan of virtual stagers or virtual staging. I just think that, again, it's your brand. Like spend, on average, we're at about 6,500 on a 15 to 17, 1,800 square foot house. Once you get 2,000, it bumps up a little bit, like another grand. So that kind of gives you guys an idea of cost. I'm a firm believer of full stages. I don't do half stages. Even when, So
yeah, I agree with that as well. Stage your property. Don't be cheap. If you invest at 2,500, they'll turn into 7,500 at the end of the day, at least, in my opinion.
But I will tell you guys, I'm highly, highly, highly considering after our most recent project is investing in a storage facility and starting to accumulate some common staging items, because I feel like we can also increase our profit margin when we have our own stuff. Like, we know the style of the house that we're usually taking down. We have a particular style of how we're staging and what we want to see in a staged property. So we're looking at, picking up some furniture and then beginning to stage ourselves, because it'll, save us, $6,000 to $7,000 per flip. So that's, another way to kind of start to think about how can you decrease your expenses and increase your margins, things that you can control.
Yeah. It's just like In-N-Out growing their own tomatoes.
Do they grow their own tomatoes? Son of a gun.
They do.
Awesome. All right. So we've sold our property. We've made a margin. Now it's time to pay the bills. So you've already shared that you pay your subs weekly, right? And you've already paid for your materials. Is that right?
Correct.
Right. So staging's paid for, your photography, all that stuff is already paid for. Now it's time to pay the bills, right? Does anybody give you dating, or do you pay anybody at the close of escrow, or is everybody sort of cash on demand?
Yeah. We don't.
By that point, everyone's paid already.
Yeah. One thing that you guys should remember, though, just like, a seller that you might be representing, you have to remember to make sure that, like, there's a timing issue. Like for us right now, like, we want to make sure like we're getting the staged furniture out so that we can do our fumigation. So there's things that you kind of have to remember that, like when you're in escrow, like, okay, now that we're non-contingent with our buyer who's buying our flip, let's get the stage, let's schedule staging removal. Let's also make sure that, utilities are going to be transferred over. Even, if there's a gardener or like in our case, we have somebody doing the koi pond, like all that stuff has to be handled. So from an expense standpoint, that's just something to notate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. So do either of you guys journal or have a, like, what would they call that? A perfected document? Like when you're done, when all is said and done with a project, do either of you journal and write down your lessons learned and what perhaps, what you did well, what you can do better next time?
I don't implement that, but we should.
It's so funny. Like that's something that we debrief, like a verbal debrief on, what's gone well. What did the buyers, what did the neighbors, what did all the, looky-loos, whatever, what did they say about the property? And oftentimes it's really positive feedback. So we notate like, what are the things that they really liked and enjoyed? Because those are things that we have to make sure that we continue as part of our model of like what you can expect when you have a blueprint home that's been flipped. Like what are some of the characteristics that you can expect aside from craftsmanship? Because you want to make sure that you're listening, right, to what buyers are wanting and what they're liking that you've done. So we do that, but I do like the idea, Lee, of actually kind of writing things down, because I'm not getting younger and my memory probably is somewhat not as sharp. So I like that, writing it down.
That's right. And I just, Brock, I hope that most of us, and we always want to improve. You guys are professionals, and you want to continually evaluate how you're doing things. Can you do them faster, quicker, better, et cetera, right? Journaling helps us do that. But I approach things like when I coach, I approach things as pre-game, game, and post-game, right? All this pre-game stuff, all the preparation that we do to suit up and go meet with clients, for example, right? Then the game is that listing presentation, right? And then we successfully sell a property, and that's great news, right? And then the post game is the evaluation. What could I have done better, right? What did I do really well for this family, But it's in that constant desire to be better. Just write it down. Just write it down so you have it. You have it there. You don't have to be like, "Oi, I forgot to order the toilets."
Yeah. There's a great question that I saw pop up. Would you mind if I get that question, or do we have time?
Please, go right ahead.
So Lawrence Mann asked, when you are remodeling, let's say a kitchen, or when purchasing materials, do you shop with the mindset, I would love that, that's nice, I have something similar, or this will suffice? For me, it's in the area, you should know your area. Like Brock knows La Crescenta. I can't tell him how he runs the show there. He knows what the people want, right? So I know what the people want in, for example, Leimert Park or Jefferson Park or those areas, because I know I've sold enough there that I already know, okay, this is what the people are expecting in these listings. So yes, I will go into the mindset like, oh, that's a nice kitchen, but I'll try to stay neutral. I'll try to not go too out there. Like, yes, nice quartz countertops, but nothing too crazy. I don't want to paint like a cabinets a certain color because I like them. I want to appeal to the masses. Does that make sense? And of course, and I'll take cost into consideration. If the property is going to sell for 900, $1 million, I might spend a little more than I would if I had a listing that was going to sell for 600 or 650. So we keep mid-grade, but we never go cheap on the products. We don't want those flimsy closet doors and no flimsy stuff. That's just me. I don't like the flimsy materials. We like good materials, but also we take costs in consideration.
Yeah,
Awesome.
We try to, and so I completely appreciate and respect that. And that's actually a really good angle that you should pursue, and I think, my partner would probably fall more on Henry's side of the of risk tolerance, where I tend to want to look for, how can we really capture, that added value by being, maybe doing, like he pushed back on me on our most recent one with the beams. Now the beams weren't load bearing, but we put in really nice beams. So from the post out on the front porch, the beams inside, it cost us $9,000, which, it's a big line item, but I felt that was something that would be a high ROI. And I think every buyer that came through absolutely loved them. So I'll push to do things that I feel like will separate us from the market and what's available out there, because we're really trying to maximize every square inch of the property. Because if the property is only 15 to 1,800 square feet, you could only do so much. So I feel like doing certain things with that are outside the norm, but not too far outside, will hopefully warrant a higher return. But yeah, Henry, what you said is spot on too.
No, that's awesome. And if it works, why not? Why fix it if it's not broken? And I think that's the good synergy between you and your partner. He slows you down a bit and you're like, so it's a good balance. If you had two people that are wild horses, forget it. You're gonna overspend on every project. And so yeah, that's pretty awesome. For example, something that I do and I think is underrated, landscaping. Landscaping doesn't cost a lot and you can make a lush garden, like add some color and gravel, and it just does so much. I don't know why people just put the mulch and that's it. It's a $3 bag of mulch. Come on, go out and spend a little more, and those things really pop in the photos.
So, hey guys, this is our last question. It's one of my favorite parts of this, actually. So, we learn a lot more from our mistakes than we do from our victories. Wouldn't you all agree?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So please, let's start with you, Henry. Tell us your most colossal blunder when you're flipping a house.
Do we have 3 hours?
Just
No,
pick one.
just kidding.
Just pick one.
No, I'm just joking. But HPOZ, I bought a property. I said, oh, historic. Yeah, I can handle it. I let my ego get in the way, clouded me. I lost 80 grand. I spent a year and a half of my life working every day on this project, and it bit me in the ass. So I learned if I'm gonna buy a property in the HPOZ area, I'm offering significantly less. And let someone else that doesn't know buy it if they're gonna buy it, and that's fine. You could take it. But yeah, there's some of the lessons. It's just like, if you're not an expert in one thing or you're not sure, just back off and let the deal go by and get the next one. Don't be chasing the deals.
My ego is not my amigo.
Absolutely.
Brock, what about you, buddy?
I don't know. I mean, I think one thing is don't fall in love with the property with respect to the upgrades and the finishes, because you're not going to live in it. You got to keep in mind that you're in a business to make money. So just make sure that, you pump the brakes on certain things that you're considering doing that may allow you to have to dip into your reserves, your contingency fund there for your project. And the other thing I think for me is just probably not buying a couple. I can think of 2 properties that we didn't buy for various reasons that I wish we would have and we could have. And seeing what they ended up going for, you kind of kick yourself. So, but we from a standpoint of major losses like that were felt, I haven't had that yet, but I've made plenty of mistakes along the way, but I feel like we've been able to course correct and just make sure that we don't repeat it. But I think keeping the cost, and again, like Henry said, like my partner keeps me in check when sometimes I want to run really fast. He'll question that, and then we come to common ground, and each side has to compromise. You give and take. And it's important to have somebody that you're in business with that brings a level of intelligence and pause to the relationship, because if you're both running, like Henry said, at the same speed, you're not going to get the results that you want, because you kind of just cancel each other out.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So let's, hey everybody, let's open it up for Q&A for a few minutes. If anybody has any questions that you'd like to share with the group, please do so now. See someone over there. Hard to see.
I have a question.
Hi.
Karina.
Hi there, guys. So I have a question, technology question. Will there be a recording available? Because I missed the first 45
Yes.
minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're recording it.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's you, Karina.
Super
Awesome.
interesting. Thank you.
All right. Very good.
Guys, I was wondering, this is Doug. How you guys
Hi,
doing?
Doug.
Thanks so
Hey,
much
Doug.
for your time. This has been wonderful. I wanted to talk about maybe the pros and cons of flipping right away as opposed to BRRRRRRR, where is that another way to finance, just sort of repeat, it's the advantages to that over or flipping right away over that, I guess is my question. Thanks.
All right, guys, I'm the acronym police. What's a BRRRR?
Oh, sorry. So you buy it, you renovate it, you rent it, you refinance it, you repeat.
Oh,
It's a Burr method.
learn something new every day.
I mean, it just depends on your ability to maintain those assets and continue to debt service them. I mean, if you can do that, holding on to an asset over time allows for increased leverage. And that's part of. I mean, I think our next, the conversations that my partner and I are having is doing some things outside of the state where we have boots on the ground in other areas that we might be able to then start to slowly scale in a different type of market. But those would be probably more holds than flips. We'd go in and do work, but we would, we'd add value, and then we would increase the rents and then hold them. But look, I think as long as Doug, I think goes back to like what works for you. Where are you currently in your, in your season of your life that you're not gonna, bankrupt yourself, so to speak, on making poor decisions. Like, do what makes sense for you based on where you are. And then as you grow, you'll start to learn how you can start to leverage that asset and do different things that will, give you the returns that, that you're looking for. I don't think there's a right or wrong. As long as you're profiting and you're moving the money consistently, you're in a good position.
Yeah, that's a good point Brock brought up. And also that's one of the things that we're looking forward as a company. So we want to venture into buying and holding. I just don't think right now is the right market for it, but we do want to buy and hold in the future. So we're just in the accumulation stage where we're trying to build up capital and keep it going, and also move into the syndication. That's another one of our goals. We're already starting with some of our own clients. They're starting to bring back money because they trust us. They already see the jobs that we're doing. And they're like, hey, it's going great. I want to put some money. I have a $250,000 parked over here. I don't know what to do with it. My bank's only paying me 1%. So they're like, hey, I can go for that 10 or 15%. So that it's easier to start getting money and using other people's money at no risk to you. So yeah, that's eventually, we do want to get into the BRRRR. I love that strategy personally. And I also, one of our other goals is to start developing as well. I don't know if it's a good time, Brock. I don't know what your opinion is on that, but I've seen a lot of the projects go up where one property goes down and then they build up like 4 to 6 projects. I think that's something that we've been eyeballing lately.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know what we're facing in this global economy that is now sort of on pins and needles, and we're going to wait and see. I mean, for us, we want to make sure that we can, have a very short sort of depth perception of like, when we can get rid of the asset, and when you get into, we looked at a project that was going to probably be a 2 to 3 year build out, which, for us was a little too risky because we just don't know. And I'm not in that position where I could risk the type of, money and time that would be required for a 3-year project, not knowing where the market is, not knowing what rates are going to be. So for us right now, we know what works and we're just capitalizing on that. But, I think you got to keep your eyes open for opportunities and see how that fits within your palette of like risk tolerance.
Yeah. And I think one last point on that BRRRR strategy, if you don't already own a property, I think using like a house hacking method works really well. Like you get in with low financing and move into one, you only have to live there 1 year, and then you could buy again as your single family residence, and you have a property that's hopefully cash flowing right at that point. So.
Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Yep.
Awesome.
Can I ask a question that was kind of like, that kind of went off of something I was wondering, like you guys are talking about, obviously you flip, countless properties at this point. And so if you can go back and like, think about the first ones that you flipped, what kind of strategies did you have to really get into it? Was it how you said, Henry, was it your first property that you personally bought yourself and then you lived there for a year and then you took that cash and then you flipped it into something else?
Yeah, that I started with that. It was kind of like not knowing what I was doing. I just wanted a home. I moved in it, and I was literally living in the living room I was doing room by room. That was like, I had no strategy. I was just like, okay, I guess this is the way I'm going to do it. And I floated, and it turned out to be good. I lived there 2 years and then I sold it. And that's kind of how I got started in the real estate flipping. I sold some of my properties that my parents passed down to me as well. That got me kickstarted. But yeah, it was just like that. And the first flips that I done are really embarrassing. Actually, if I look back at them, I mean, I did a horrible job. I was just like, oh my God, I'm looking back now. It was literally the broker at the time that I was working for, I was doing loans, said, hey, this is a good deal. I was like, you sure? Yeah, okay. I guess he knows. He made 30,000 commission and I got screwed. I ended up making like 7,500, Brock, at the end of the day.
Okay, so how did you take that then? If you only made 35 or 7,500, how did you flip that into your next property?
It was just a lesson. It was, I mean, you get your
Okay.
money back, but you get your money back. So whatever you
Yeah.
put in,
Oh, yeah,
if
of
you're
course.
leveraging it, yeah, you get all your down payment and everything back.
Right.
That's just your profit. And yeah, you move the money around.
Got it. Brock?
I actually, my first was flipping my childhood home. And that, that's in Ohio, so it's a different market. So, and that was more coming from a standpoint of like really watching the cost, because, there's a very defined threshold of what was, because there's not necessarily the demand, in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, that you have in Los Angeles. So, a whole different type of equation, if you will, of looking at, like, I mean, I'll just be honest with you, like it was more of a Home Depot flip for me, because there was a limit on what I could make. So I had to keep the cost down on materials. And that was challenging because I was here, having to fly back and forth, and was able to connect with an agent there that I grew up with. She's like a big agent there. And so she connected me with a really reliable contractor who helped sort of manage it and supply the subs. And I just, I'd been wanting to get into it for a long time and just use that as my, sort of catapult.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Great
Any
question.
other questions?
Yeah, Lee, this is Faisal. I've got a question.
Hi,
I
Faisal.
wrote it in the chat, but when I'm assuming you obviously act as the agent when you buy and when you sell. Do you roll your commission into the project, or do you keep that separate as real estate income?
We've done both. Just it kind of depends on what the cash flow looks like. If we're, if I have, if we have several, we'll have 2 projects typically going on, and then I have also undertaken quite the project at my own house that is never ending. So it just depends. I mean, if I need to have more liquidity, then I will, and then we offset that at the closing with my partner based on his project management fee. But then at the closing, no, we don't. We only pay the co-broker. We don't, obviously pay us, the sellers. So, but yeah, we've done both on the purchase. So sometimes we roll it in, sometimes we keep it just to have the cash for the rehab.
I once bought a HUD home where pretty much the commission helped me pay for closing costs or stuff like that. So sometimes we roll them in, sometimes we don't. Like Brock said, just depending on how much liquidity you need at the time.
All right. So this looks like a good place to wrap things up. Brock, Henry, thank you so much. This was a blast. I hope that you guys took an awful lot of notes. And if you have questions, go ahead and reach out to us at the KW Los Feliz office. Thanks for visiting with us today. Thanks for investing in yourselves. And we hope to see you real soon.
Thank you. It was fun.
Lee, one more quick question. Can you have Noel email the link to everyone for the Zoom to catch the recording?
We'll have, yeah.
We don't have a Noel.
Or your Noel.
Yes.
We don't have a Noel, but yes, absolutely.
Right.
All right, you guys.
It was great.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
day.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you.